Chapter 63. The Death and Burial of Jesus Christ. John chapter 19, verses 31 to 42. The Jews therefore, because it was a preparation that the bodies should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was an high day, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken, and that they might be taken away. Then came the soldiers and brake the legs of the first, and of the other which was crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus, and saw that he was dead already, they brake not his legs. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. And he that saw it bare record, and his record is true, and he knoweth that he saith true, that ye might believe. For these things were done, that the scripture should be fulfilled, a bone of him shall not be broken. And again another scripture saith, They shall look on him whom they pierced. And after this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, for fear of the Jews, besought Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus, and Pilate gave him leave. He came therefore and took the body of Jesus. And there came also Nicodemus, which at the first came to Jesus by night, and brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100 pound weight. Then took they the body of Jesus, and wound it in linen clothes, with the spices, as the manner of the Jews is to bury. Now, in the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre, wherein was never man yet laid. There laid they Jesus, therefore, because of the Jews' preparation day, for the sepulchre was nigh at hand. John chapter 19, verses 31 to 42. It was the Roman custom to allow men to die on the cross and to leave their bodies to decay there. The sight of this would be a grim warning of Roman justice to all who pass by. On this occasion, there was a problem. For the Jews, the next day being a Sabbath, it was not permitted that dead or dying men remain on the cross. Some men lasted 3 days before dying. Jesus, who had been severely beaten, probably to the point of exposing bones, was greatly weakened, and therefore died early. Crucifixion was a death normally reserved for slaves, as was the breaking of bones to bring on death. Both were involved here, because the two malefactors crucified with Jesus were still alive. When Jesus' side was pierced with a spear to see if he were truly dead, blood and water both came out. The screaming agony of the two malefactors when their leg bones were broken must have been intense. The Roman soldiers were used to this kind of horror and performed their duties routinely. It is noteworthy that, while the 3 men were dying on their crosses, the Jewish religious leaders went to Pilate to ask that the condemned men's legs be broken. So far as they knew, this would apply to Jesus. Jesus had twice declared to these religious leaders that God had plainly said, I will have mercy and not sacrifice. Matthew chapter 9 verse 13, chapter 12 verse 7. But they were more interested in exercising vengeance against Jesus. To my knowledge, this kind of cruelty was still used as recently as World War I by Turks against Armenian prisoners as a means of torture and execution. At this point in verses 35 to 37, John interjects a passionate statement. He tells us that he was there and witnessed what he describes. He insists on the total accuracy of what he reports, and he calls upon us to believe him. Plummer's comment here is of interest. Why does St. John attest thus earnestly the trustworthiness of his narrative at this particular point? 4 reasons may be assigned. This incident proved, 1. The reality of Christ's humanity against ascetic views, and these verses, therefore, are conclusive evidence against the theory that the 4th Gospel is a work of a docetic Gnostic. 2. The reality of Christ's divinity against Ebionite views. While his human form was no mere phantom, but flesh and blood, yet he was not therefore a mere man, but the Son of God. 3. The reality of Christ's death, and therefore of his resurrection, against Jewish insinuations of trickery. Compare Matthew chapter 27, verses 13 to 15. 4. The clear and unexpected fulfillment of 2 messianic prophecies. John cites 2 prophecies as here fulfilled. First, there is Psalm 34, verse 20. He keepeth all his bones, not one of them is broken. This echoes also Exodus chapter 12, verse 46, concerning the Passover lamb, and Numbers chapter 9, verse 12. Jesus, says John, is our true Passover lamb. Second, the citation about the piercing is from Psalm 22, verse 16, and Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10. John refers to this verse again in Revelation chapter 1, verse 7. The origin of both citations is from David, and they tell us that David's experiences and concerns prefigure those of the Messiah. In verses 38 to 42, we have the burial of Jesus described. Joseph of Arimathea was a secret disciple. We are told about him in Matthew chapter 27, verse 57, Mark chapter 15, verse 43, and Luke chapter 23, verse 50. He was rich and a member of the Sanhedrin, but we are also told that he was a good and just man. His fearfulness does not disbar him from his rightful place as a secondary disciple. The same was true of Nicodemus. These 2 men are named because we are to respect them. Joseph of Arimathea had ownership of a new grave, and this was close by. He at once made it available for Jesus' body. Moreover, he went to Pilate to gain permission for the burial. Nicodemus assisted him by providing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100 pounds or 1,200 ounces, to be packed around the body for its burial. This was established Jewish practice, although here a generous amount of embalming material is in evidence. As quickly as they could before sunset, the body was wrapped and buried. Apparently, the final burial work was left for the woman to take care of on the first day of the week. The tomb was not far from Golgotha. We are told specifically that the tomb was a new and unused one, not one designed for multiple bodies. This was to stress the total holiness of the Lord's body and the undefiled nature of his grave. To his followers, this was important. Though bewildered by the course of events and finding it difficult to understand our Lord's predictions of his resurrection, they were still totally convinced of his perfect holiness. The crucifixion, burial, and resurrection were for centuries common subjects for church art. Our more jaded era finds it less shattering a fact to imagine the death of God the Son in his incarnation. Somehow, like the Gnostics, we have trouble seeing it as an actuality. Similarly, the resurrection is a problem for people now, because, in the modern era, death is seen as final rather than as a prelude to heaven and hell and to judgment. Modern man has a warped vision. Before World War II, Dunn, a scientist, wrote a book on an experiment with time. He called attention to the fact that agnostics and atheists had predicted that, with the loss of belief in life after death, men would prize this brief life more and would behave more humanely. Instead, he saw growing callousness towards life for the loss of faith in God and life after death. We should not wonder at this. If life has no meaning, what value has it? And what then is morality but misguided behaviour? In recent years, the social importance of Good Friday and Resurrection Day has faded. Family funerals are less and less marked by family reunions and dinners. There are fewer tears at funerals and fewer family celebrations, and some treat funerals as a bad relic of a previous era. One group has advertised cremations and non-funeral dispositions of the dead. One writer of the late 1950s saw death as a new, coming, quote, pornography, end quote. That is, death would replace, quote, dirty books, end quote, as the unspeakable and forbidden. John, however, requires us to fix our attention on Christ's death and its grim nature, because he sees it as central to the meaning of history and life. Believe me on this above all, he says, because here is life and redemption.